Welcome to Voices of Service, the new podcast brought to you by the Montgomery County Department of Police, hosted by myself, Cassandra Tressler, and Assistant Chief of Police, Darren Frank.
We believe that communities thrive when there's a strong bond between the men and women who serve and the people they protect. That's you. This podcast, Voices of Service, is about fostering connections, opening lines of communication, and building a safer, stronger, and more caring community together.
Here we'll sit down with officers, professional staff, and special guests.
Expect interviews, discussions on crime prevention, new technology discussions, community events, and much more. Our goal is to make this podcast not only informative, but also entertaining and engaging. But Voices of Service is not just about talking to you. It's about engaging in open conversation.
That means we want to hear from you, our community. Your concerns, your questions, they matter. So don't hesitate to reach out, and together we'll address the topics that resonate most with you. Thank you for tuning in to Voices of Service. We are excited about connecting with you through this podcast. Hit subscribe, tell your friends and family, and let's make an impact together.
Please, everyone stay safe, and let's stay connected.
Chief, awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So we are here today to talk about Major City Chiefs.
Okay.
But before that, as we were just speaking on my way in, I realized that my anniversary date for the department is coming up. And it made me think, how many years have you been on the department?
So I have been on for 37 years, and my anniversary will be September of this year, so that'll be my 38th year.
Awesome. I'm not quite there yet. But I was wondering, when you came on, did you immediately know you wanted to be chief of police one day?
Absolutely not. For me, when I first came on, the idea of just being a police officer was a great magnitude for me. So, through the years of seeing the different chiefs, it was a pretty high bar, particularly here in Montgomery County with all the talent that we had here. Yes.
Was there one particular chief that inspired you to want to become chief one day?
I think like Chief Moose, and even Chief Manger. I think they both, provided some attributes that I really liked their style in certain ways, and so that was a little bit of inspiration for me as well.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay. And let me ask you this. I know in my years of being here, I've seen a ton of change in the department. For you, what has been one of the biggest changes that you have seen?
Wow, so many changes,
Yeah.
but I think really the biggest change is really technology. That's of what we're capable of doing today, and the tools that we have that are very unique. Technology was, I mean, really to have one computer at a district station running, MVA, motor vehicle administration, driver license, or NCIC checks was probably the biggest thing that you ever did with a computer. So yeah, we've come a very long way when it comes to technology.
Yeah, I hear back, I will say in the day, they used to write reports, handwritten reports.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely correct. You had to have plenty of pens,
Yeah.
and we had carbon paper for our reports. So yeah, and if you messed up, you had a lot of redoing to do. So yeah, that was a big thing back in the day. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, talking a little bit about Major City Chiefs, can you tell me what Major City Chiefs is?
So Major City Chiefs is an association. It's an association of chiefs of police of major police departments in the United States, and Canada. So you look at really the like 75 largest police departments in the United States, and then you add in some of the provinces in Canada that make up the Major City Chiefs Association.
So, is there a qualification that we had to have in order to become part of Major City Chiefs?
That's correct. We had to have the size and the population as required by Major City Chiefs bylaws in order to qualify. So the size meaning the number of personnel, sworn officers that would qualify us to be a member of Major City Chiefs.
Okay. And do you recall how long have we been part of Major City Chiefs?
I'm not quite sure, but I think we've been here pretty for a while. Yeah.
So something before you were chief,
Well
we've been a part.
before, yeah. I mean, literally we're probably going back into the 1990s, I would imagine, yes.
Okay. And what do you think one of the biggest things that Major City Chiefs has inspired or actually, I guess, how has that changed our department?
Well, it gives our department, again, when we work with other major city chiefs and their departments, it
Hmm.
gives us the ability to dialogue, to change ideas, to share in our ideas, but also to really obtain some of the latest information and research. We do, there's a lot of connectivity to the research community, as well as much of the work that's being done as far as lobbying federal authorities such as Congress
Okay.
or the president, in order to address things that are in the policing field. So it's really a great magnitude of us really sitting down and sharing ideas about what's going on across the country.
Okay, so fantastic. So do you guys meet routinely or in order to share ideas, or how do you guys get together to actually do that?
So generally, we meet 3 times a year. We have a winter meeting. We have we have a summer meeting, and then we have a fall meeting. And then the fall meeting is generally centered around the IACP conference. So we will meet generally 2 days before the IACP meets, and that will then roll into the IACP conference. So we're separate from IACP from that perspective, particularly because there are two different associations. But that's one of the big connectivities of bringing together the major cities departments and IACP just a smidget, you might say. And then you might have the connectivity of like Police Executive Research Forum,
Okay.
also known as PERF,
Okay.
right? And they will sometimes do town halls to merge both of those associations together.
Okay, incredible. Now, for those of our viewers who don't know, what does IACP stand for?
It's the International Association of Chiefs of Police.
Okay.
And so IACP is a much larger organization because there are literally 18,000 police departments in the United States, as an example.
Okay.
But IACP also has members who are all across the world.
Okay.
Okay, so you can imagine the magnitude of an IACP conference.
Right.
But IACP covers those smaller police departments that don't meet the qualification of
The major
the
city
major
chief.
city chiefs. That's correct.
Understood. Okay. And what has been some of the, you meet with other major city chiefs and then you guys share communications, you share intel about different situations. How does that work
Oh
and how does
yeah,
that benefit us?
oh absolutely. So, for example, let's say we had the incident that occurred in Memphis,
Hmm.
right? When the Memphis chief, who was a member of her organization, a member of ICE, of Major City Chiefs,
Okay.
when that happened and there was anticipation that there may be civil unrest. So in the midst of that, Major City Chiefs called literally a conference call, bringing all of the members together um, prior to the announcement of the officers who were going to be arrested.
Okay.
So we had the intelligence knowing what was going to be happening in Memphis, and sort of being ready to be prepared for our jurisdiction so that we could, make sure that we were ready, and to deal with any unrest should there be any. And
Okay.
that was a really from a standpoint of being in front of something that's major. So hearing from the chief in Memphis of the details of what exactly was going on, excluding any media, i.e.,
Yeah.
reports that we would only have otherwise.
Yeah.
That was great insight for us to know what was happening, boots on the ground in Memphis. And
Understood.
so that's an example of things that are occurring real time across the country that can have an impact on, similar like what happened with George Floyd,
Yeah.
right? The same thing where having information in advance, or knowing that this is going to impact law enforcement across the
Hmm.
rest of the country based upon an incident that happened in that particular city.
Right. It really takes our large world and makes it really
It
small by
does,
being able to do
absolutely
that.
it does. Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Okay, and has there been anything that you have gained from Major City Chiefs that you've implemented in our department?
Well, yeah, I mean, there have been things that, when we look at some of the programs,
Mhm.
um, similarly, like if we look at some aspects of our policies that might be centered around, for example, like body worn camera. Generally, you were looking for best practices,
Got it.
and so there information that is being shared, and if we're inquiring about a certain program, we will generally reach out to other members in Major City Chiefs and ask questions about about a similar type program to get some feedback from other members.
Okay.
So, like an example, then years ago, there was like when tattoos were being permissible by many police departments,
Right.
and our department hadn't rotated into that field yet. Right, that was one of the things we would like ask the question: have you implemented? What is your policy? What do you allow? What don't you allow? That allows you to kind of get some information, some feedback to help maybe help you formulate your
Okay.
policy. And
Okay.
so that's what we do a lot of times in Major City Chiefs, is that's the sort of throwing things against the wall, you might
Right.
say, and people come back with ideas
Okay.
about how, like one of the big things now is like recruitment, right, and
Mhm.
retention. So as much as we have been impacted by the loss of personnel, when you talk to some of I was just in Major City Chiefs meeting not a few weeks ago, and I'm talking to my friend in Phoenix, and he's saying, well, yes, well, I'm 500 officers now.
Wow.
So it puts things in perspective as
Right.
well, right? When you think your agency is really going through maybe a bad time, there may be others who are struggling, and then again, what are they doing different, right?
That's
And
okay.
that's one of the big conversations we had was what is that organization doing different as a result of them, with the loss of personnel? How do they adjust to providing the police service necessary? That's
Absolutely.
really, I mean, and it's good information to be shared, because then we can come back with ideas to think about, being now every community is not the same,
Correct.
and right, so we have to always understand that as the chief. That's something I
Yeah.
clearly understand, that just because they're doing it some way in one jurisdiction doesn't mean it's going to happen here,
Right,
right?
with ours. Well, great. So it seems like Major City Chiefs is really an organization that allows us to share, kind of get ideas as to what works for them, what could work for us,
Right.
what doesn't, maybe what we don't want to implement. Is there anything else about Major City Chiefs that you would want to share with our listeners and our viewers?
Well, one of the things I think it's an exposure even in the executive ranks. I mean, many of the executives have not been exposed to Major City Chiefs per
Mhm.
se. It's something we try to expose more executives as the years go by. So generally, not every meeting, but the meetings that I'm allowed to bring other executives, and sometimes it's a Chiefs only meeting, but there majority of the time we bring others to the meeting, so they are listening and sharing and networking,
Got it.
right, with other executives that are across the country, because
Mhm.
the other chiefs are bringing their executives as well. They bring their legal counsel, they may bring their city manager, or right, or in our case would be our chief administrative officer. So it's an opportunity again, because there's a vast majority of different things that are being talked about. We bring our PI, our public information
Mhm.
officer, right, to the meeting, because that they have a committee. So there's different committees that they have that, and again, helping these major city chiefs address things that are going on within these our large organizations.
Right. Now, from the last time we spoke, you told me that there was something that you actually did with our public information office that was inspired from something you had learned with Major City
Yes,
Chiefs.
that's correct. So one of the things that I learned in having spoken to the major city chiefs, and listening to a presentation,
Hmm.
we had always had our public information office designated under the Management Services Bureau. And the one of the consultants who does a lot of the media work for major city chiefs made a statement and really highlighted two chiefs that said that, it is best, the best way to communicate and manage the information is that that person should be directly under the chief's office, a direct report to you. And so when I thought about that, it made a lot of sense. And I've made a lot of decisions. It's probably one of the better ones I've made. I think it's been a fluid process for us to do it that way. And so, yeah, I think that, and everything that she gave me, the advice and listening to that presentation, I found that to be absolutely true. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Awesome. So just one more question for you. How long have you been chief?
So I have been chief for, the way I look at it, is 4 years, right?
Okay.
So it's really officially it's 3.5.
Okay.
A little over 3.5, but because I was acting chief, right, prior to my appointment, that's why I say it's 4, right?
Right.
So I've been in a big seat since that long, yeah.
So then that's probably given you a chance. You've been to many of these major city.
Yes.
Okay. And so do you feel that every single time you go, you're learning something more to bring back to our department, to implement in our department?
Generally, I would say yes. I mean, not only from a standpoint of just the going and listening to the presentations, I think the other part of it is also networking.
Yeah.
So, really having, it's an opportunity for me to network with many of the major city chiefs. So, for example, next, we have Fairfax County, we have Metropolitan Police with Washington, D.C., you have Prince George's County, you have Baltimore City and Baltimore County police departments as members of major city chiefs. So therefore, those chiefs of those departments, who I generally don't see often,
Right.
now maybe Metropolitan, maybe Fairfax, and Prince George's, but it gives us the opportunity to really kind of sit down and talk to each other more about things that we might want to even do together, or share, and again, ideas of the issues that we have related to law enforcement, and gives us an opportunity to really have those conversations. So to me, that's pretty valuable.
Absolutely.
It is, and it also, they allow us to help to bring, for people who, they have a really good program, Major City Chiefs, called the Police Executive Leadership Institute.
Okay.
And so this allows individuals who want to become chiefs.
Okay.
It's actually it's a training. It's a 3-week training, and where you actually are being trained by former chiefs of police, current chiefs of police, to kind of understand the process of going through to become a chief. So that's pretty, because again, there's always transition, right?
Right.
I mean, when we say the life of a chief, how many years do you serve? Really, the average time is about 5 years.
Okay.
Right. So generally, there's always this transition. Some chiefs may last, less, and some last more, right? But the reality is that you always have to kind of build the bench, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things that Major City Chiefs does a really good job of, helping to build that bench.
Fantastic. That's very valuable.
Yeah.
So you're going to stay with us for longer, right? We're trying to go above that average.
Yeah, I might be right around that average when it's all said and done, but it's all good. Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being here with us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Cass. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Brian, Lieutenant Merriman, thank you for
Good to see you.
talking with Cassandra and I today.
Yes, of course.
We wanted to chat with you about a couple things. First of all, what do you do in the department?
I asked myself that occasionally, but today I'm the legal and labor director for the department.
Okay, so,
I read a lot.
okay,
I think of myself like a 24-hour hotline for any need of the department.
okay.
Yeah.
So that when you talk about legal and labor, we're talking about the contract, the collective
Contract.
bargaining
So
agreement.
I worked with Office of Labor Relations, the FOP, McGeo. We have 2 labor unions in the department, and I help navigate contract issues with members of the department.
Okay.
But that's not where you were last year, correct?
It was not.
So can you tell us a little bit about the job that you were in last year, the position that you were in last year?
Yeah, of course. So I served as the the XO to the chief of police, Chief
What's
Marcus
XO?
Jones. Chief's assistant,
Okay.
basically, is the best way to put it.
Okay.
Chief's executive officer.
Okay.
And so that job is very diverse. The saying is that that job is you serve at the pleasure of the chief, and you don't really know when you walk in one day what life will be like compared to the next.
So what was one of the biggest things that you had to do while you were in that position?
So when I was there, I would say it was about a month into the job. The chief pulled me into his office. He said, "Hey, Brian, it's the hundredth anniversary of the department is coming up in July." I said, "That's nice. That's good." And he said, I want you to talk to this company about a yearbook. So that was my first taking was the yearbook. So I coordinated the yearbook, and sometime that summer we did a photo shoot down in headquarters and got everybody photographed. But it wasn't just that. There was a lot of the chief had a vision of multiple events to occur throughout the year to celebrate this momentous occasion.
And what were some of those events that he had a vision of or planned for you to do?
So he had a very broad vision of involving the Alumni Association and all of the people from the past and celebrating with those that are currently with the department. So we talked about having a community day event to celebrate the community, a celebration weekend, which kind of memorialized the time capsule, the unveiling and the planting of a new time capsule, a dinner event, and a family day. And then it all culminated with a capstone event, which was a gala that took place at the Bethesda Marriott.
So you get the community day. I have very vivid memories of the community day. It was a challenge, right?
Well, the funny thing is in the planning, so we had a planning committee, and in the planning of that, the community day was actually supposed to be the easiest event and actually was probably the farthest off of the radar. And I'm not sure why. I think because in the logistics of things, when you're planning a big dinner or a gala, you're thinking of the food choices, the table, the linen, and all of these planning and coordination. The community day was really like, oh, that'll be an easy one. We'll just blow right past one. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that was actually marked the second event. We did a candlelight vigil for fallen officers for Montgomery County. That was in early May, and then later in that month we had the community day. So when we started the planning, it kind of spiraled out of control. It went from this tiny little thing to this massive undertaking. I feel like after we met with the fairground owners, that's when I guess he had a grander vision, because he runs the fair every year, of this
Right.
grandiose event.
Right.
And at that point I realized, like this.
So
this
how
could be
many people
interesting.
did it end up being?
So it's estimated it was equivalent to a fair day, which is 35,000 people
Wow.
in one day at the fair, which was unbelievable.
So I think one of the things and why it's vivid and why it stood out for us, and Cassandra was there as part of our PIO office. I was there just going around and seeing the different displays. We didn't expect that many people to show up because, it's been a tough couple years.
Yes.
And then to see all of these people from the community come out with their kids, and yeah, there were rides there,
Yeah.
which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yep. Thanks.
So there were rides, but the other neat thing was the interaction between the officers and these families, these kids, these adults, as they were really just enjoying
Yeah.
what was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Other than the parking.
The parking, there were some problems. The parking was a little bit of an issue. I heard there was a line on 270 to get into the venue. I mean,
Okay.
it was free, and when
So-
you offer free, they
Hey,
come.
it worked, but more importantly, we did it again.
We did. This year, we took a spin on it, and we made it Public Safety Appreciation Day and encompassed all of our public safety partners in celebrating the law enforcement and fire rescue community with the entire community. It was equal, if not better, than the event from last year. But you forgot to mention the food trucks. The food trucks were the talk of the town because I'm pretty sure I visited at least each of them throughout the course of the day.
Last year or this year or both?
Maybe both.
All right.
Maybe both.
Well, I was thinking you keep talking about a vision that you have of the community day. I believe it was this year, or I'm sorry, I believe it was last year, but maybe it was this year that I have a video of you coming down the slide, right? And I have the community cheering for you. It was awesome. Everybody was engaged, so it was quite a day.
It was quick. It was a little scary.
Yeah.
It was a little scary, but it was fun. It was a good day. The state police helicopter came down. Half the people there ran across the field just to go see the state police helicopter.
So we brought it over not knowing the draw that may or may not have, and just as you described it, it was incredible. I mean, literally couldn't touch the ground, and the line was the whole few hours that it was there. They couldn't get enough of it. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
That's great.
Fantastic event
Yes.
for the community this year and last year.
Yeah, thank you.
So what were some other events that you had last year for the 100-year anniversary?
So after the shell shock of Community Day, we went to the July 4th weekend, which we did a combination of 3 events over 3 days. It was a commemorative weekend, we called it. And the first event was down at the old Rockville Courthouse, and there is a time capsule buried there at the last anniversary.
Okay.
And so part of the governor came and spoke, and some other key dignitaries, and we had a beautiful ceremony. We shut down downtown Rockville, which, by the way, requires a lot of permitting and other challenges. So we had a beautiful ceremony to start off that whole weekend.
So tell me a little bit about when you guys actually found that time capsule. What did it look like? Was it what you expected?
Yeah, so contrary to belief, duct tape does not fix everything. You can't just wrap duct tape around a Rubbermaid container and think it's going to be waterproof. So we had actually done a pre-dig, not knowing what we were going to find, and also, because of where this time capsule was located, there's a lot of coordination with Department of General Services to actually excavate, make sure we don't hit power lines. And fortunately, it was not that deep. But it was, when we pulled it out, Lieutenant O'Brien was the lucky one to pull that out, and we had some things possibly in the drying rack because it was absolutely saturated. So there were some things that we lost, but there were some other key items that we were able to keep. And I believe the alumni took those items and are now on display.
Now, in defense of the people that buried it, I believe they put in a sprinkler system after they buried it.
Well, yes, but I promise you that this year we went with the waterproof container. We brought it up to current year.
For the next 100 years.
For the next 100
For the next one. And I know we put some cool stuff in there. I think, we put a taser in there.
We had a taser
in there.
Yep.
Put
some challenge coins.
Some other technology.
Yeah. There's a lot that changed. The radio system, the body cameras, to an old badge to where we are now. We had a really cool commemorative badge that we made to honor the 100 years, which was worn widely across the department, and that was buried as well.
Were there any cool things or items that were kind of foreign to us from the box that you guys were able to find?
Probably to Chief Frank's era. It was to me though. There wasn't anything that was, I think, so archaic, like going to a museum. But it was very interesting. I mean, because even I have started my 21st year, and there's a lot of things that just technology, I would say, is the biggest difference. But handcuffs are still
So it might be archaic to me, but not to you.
It is possible.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So, the kind of culminating events, we had really two nice dinners, 2 nice chances to get together. Band playing was fantastic.
Yeah.
Band out of Richmond, I think it was. But it was kind of neat. It was because my kids were getting ready to go to homecoming at the same time. It felt like prom for a bunch of cops.
Yes.
Black tie event.
Yes.
It was a black tie event. You had people in tuxedos. People could dress down a little bit, but you had people in tuxedos. You had some of our officers, Cassandra, Commander Dom, just all made up to the nines. It was a fun time.
It was a great time. That was hosted by Johnny Holiday, who also did our alumni dinner. Johnny Holiday, for those that don't know, is the voice of Maryland. I know you're a big Maryland fan.
We are.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right.
So
Sorry.
Johnny hosted both of our events, which was amazing. He did a fantastic job. And for the first weekend, that commemorative weekend event, we had um, former Chief Luther Reynolds as our keynote, which was a very cool thing to have him speak.
Absolutely.
And then we had Gary Williams, the former head coach of Maryland's Terrapins basketball, came in and spoke at our gala, which was really cool. Very awesome.
So Chief Reynolds recently passed away.
He did.
He held a big place in our hearts, and it was so nice to. I mean, the way he battled cancer, and to have him come up and keynote that for us, to speak about his history with Montgomery County, his history with fighting cancer. That was terrific, and really, it really brought the house down, I think. So I will say I was talking to Chief Jones before we were doing the interview today. He said you did a fantastic job.
I
He
appreciate
said
that. Yeah.
he said you did a fantastic job, and I think that goes around for all of us. He did have one question, and I wanted to, and you know what this question is? Where's his yearbook?
Yeah. So if you remember, I mentioned the yearbook earlier. That was the first thing that I did in relation to this project, and we're still waiting. But I will say this: it is a running joke. I have a meeting every week with the chiefs, and the very first question out of their mouth, I actually don't care about anything else, but where's my yearbook? So fortunately, last week I dropped the mic and I threw a yearbook on the table. You weren't there for that. Yep, I threw the yearbook on the table.
A real yearbook?
It was a real year.
From this.
It was a
100
real one.
Well, no,
Well,
hold on.
hold on.
What year were we founded?
We just started.
1922. 1922.
We just started our 101st year.
What
101st year.
This is 2023.
It is.
Okay.
But I promise, it's such a work of art that you save the best thing for last.
So do we have a projected date as to when we're
Ooh,
going to?
You know, I don't like to give hard timelines, but I do have a hard copy of this book. It is the final stages. And I promise for all you listening, yeah, I will get it out to you very shortly.
I know we don't want to bleep anything.
No.
Right? So we're not going to mention any names of any companies.
No.
Not going to mention any names of any companies that happen to be putting us to last.
Yes.
But we'll have you back at some point to get an update.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you again. Fantastic job. We really enjoyed the events, and I know I think the biggest part is the community was engaged in this and helped us celebrate.
Absolutely.
It was also a huge, you had mentioned earlier, the morale boost. Policing, it's been a very challenging time, and it was very cool after the fact to hear the impact that event had on officers who otherwise were kind of throwing their hands up and a little fed up with the profession, and that we were able to experience that and know that the community out there still very much supports them in what they do. So it was a very fulfilling event.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great interview with Lieutenant Merriman. I think we both had fun doing that.
It was fun.
Question for you.
Okay.
Do you have your yearbook?
I do not have a yearbook, but the good news is I've seen a final draft. So we're getting there.
All right, so there you hear it. Well, at least we have a date or some kind of final draft for that yearbook. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. We look forward to connecting with you. For now, stay safe and stay connected.